Hello and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. Now I've got a big thank you to say to Hubitools for sending me these items, which we are going to review on. We have the auto tester, which I've kind of done a little video on how to do a parasitic draw, but this is going to be the full functions and everything this baby can do. And also the diagnostic test lead set, which, as you all know, if you work on modern vehicles, you need the modern stuff. It's just as simple as that. There's no if, buts or maybes. You buy good stuff, you get good quality. It's really as simple as that. So this is the full kit they do. Again, I'm not going to go through absolutely everything in this. We'll go through what the kit contains, but I won't do every single test. But I'll show you what's in the kit, what you can do, and we'll show what the auto tester can do as well. So let's get cracking, sorted. Right, I'm going to go through the test lead kit first. Now what I like about this is it's well protected. There's a nice case, really hard kind of plastic, and everything internally has its place with this really hard foam. Now, what you find is on the cheaper kits, which is what this is from, let's just get the equivalent of this one. Now, I don't know if you can see the difference. The actual big ball on the end, if I bring that up close, you'll see what I mean. And when you're trying to back probe, for example, a connection, when you put this in, this big bulge gets in the way and you cannot fit another one next to it. So if you need to do, if you need to back probe the connection twice, the cheaper kits with the big bulge just don't work, where this kit with the really fine one can go into each one of them and you're not going to have an issue. So that's kind of the first thing you just have to be aware of. Right, so what we have here, we have a couple of back probes at the end, and then we have some round pins, so male and female round pins. Then we have the kind of the standard, what you would class as the spade connections, male and female spade connections. Depending on what you're testing, you might need the round pins or the spade pins. It really is kind of as simple as that. Where these really come in handy, when you're trying to say, let's say you've got a sensor and you want to know if you've got 12 volts coming to it, or if, 5 volt reference, whatever the case may be. When you're trying to put anything, if you try and shove anything down it this way, all you're going to do is open up the pins. Once you open up the pins and slide it back, you're going to have pin fitment issues. So it might not work, or you could have intermittent problems. It's just an absolute nightmare. So when you find the right pin or the right male or female connection, that will just slide in. Have I got the right one? Oh, that's the wrong one. Where are we looking now? Is it the blue one? Now, as you can see, that's gone in. Let's just get you close up to the camera so you can see that. So that's gone in. It's a proper fitment. I haven't damaged the pins because it's the right size fitment for the pins. And then I can put whatever connection I need to this end to test for voltage, to test for, well, whatever essentially you need to test for. And like I said, the beauty of this is I can put the other one right next to it. And I could even put 3 on that. As you can see, no problem whatsoever. Where the cheaper ones with the big bulge just will not allow you to do it. So that's what they're really handy for. And they're all labeled, they're all different fitment, male and female ends. No point me going through absolutely every single one of them because you get the idea. So depending on what you're actually testing, whether you need the male end, or sorry, that's the female end, or the male end, they're big, huge spade connectors. So depending what you're actually testing, you have all the ones there for you absolutely perfectly. And they slot back really, really nicely. Let's just get this back in its place. Now, so they're kind of straightforward. Now, on the next page. Right, so what do we have here? Crocodile clips, which are really handy because if you, well, when you're testing sensors and stuff, you often need 3 hands. You just put that on it, clip it onto an earth or whatever, it stays there. You're not having to worry. It's bang, sorted, done. Then we have, here we have a couple of extenders, so we can extend our leads, plus we also can split them as well. So if you have an earth, so for example, you can put this on here, clip this to an earth. Not only do you have an extension lead, you can then also plug this in and you have an extra hole there, so you can actually run two things off the same earth, which is handy because, you know, there's a lot of times you do kind of need that. We have the same for the power as well. Extender cables, they are handy, believe me. Then we have this. Oh, we have a nice hook. I didn't even know that was there. That's handy, a hook. You want to hang, you know, your wires off, it's to get it out your way. Then we have a couple of resistors. Now I'll show you what they're for in a minute. What else do we have? These are fantastic. A variable resistor, absolutely fantastic. Now I'm not sure off the top of my head the specs of this one. Up to 10k. So you have a variable resistor there. Depending on what you're testing, if you need to test, you know. Right, I don't know where I was because my phone rang. So yeah, a variable resistor, if you're testing, well, anything really, you know, airbags, all types of things. If you want to test resistance, that is absolutely fantastic. Then we have, these are really handy, a fuse buddy. So if you want to test how much current is coming through a circuit, you take out the fuse, you replace the fuse back in here. But what this has a couple of different connections for the mini, the maxi fuse. So if you've got the maxi fuse, you put that connection on, you put your amp clamp around here, and you can actually test how much current you draw in that any particular circuit. And if you've got the really, really big fuse, this can go on. So yeah, fuse buddy, absolutely fantastic. If you're having problems with, you know, fuses popping all the time or something like that, and you want to test what sort of draw is on, you know, you can see there if it's drawing too much amp, you know you have a problem with your, let's say your radiator fan, for example, something along them lines. And if you want to just tap into a fuse box, again, you can put this in, put the fuse back, and then you essentially have, you know, if you want to test the power, what voltage is coming in or anything like that, you have this connection here straight away for you, and you haven't disturbed the actual circuit. So again, great piece of kit. These really do come in handy for finding, you know, problems with circuits. You can essentially, you know, let's say for this one, let's say you're having a pot fuse or you got a dodgy wire, put your fuse in there, put your multimeter on, you can wiggle the wires, you can look at the voltage. If the voltage is spiking and the fuse pops, you know you've got a problem somewhere in that connector block you're wiggling, for example. You know, loads of things. Now we have the Pearson probes that some people do have such a big problem when people pierce wires. Sometimes you just have to, depending on where the wire is, depending on the circumstances, sometimes you just have to pierce the wire. As long as you protect it and seal it again properly, you're not going to have an issue. So then we got some test probes, and these are actually Cat 2 and Cat 3 compatible, which is really handy. Yeah, they have the cover on, so you can take the cover off, and again, because you've got this set, for example, you can plug anything into it. So there you go. If you've got this on, you can quickly put that on, you can connect it to your earth, you know, everything's interchangeable, which is great. And then you put the cover back on, you've just kind of got a Pearson probe again, which is, you know, fantastic. Again, you have two of them. Now, I love these fellas, these are fantastic. So for testing airbags and things like that. If you remember, I said we had some resistors in there. You can put different resistors in here depending on what you're testing. So if you're testing your airbag or you're testing your seat, anything like that to do with your airbag system, depending on what car you're testing and depending on what you're actually testing, the values may be slightly different. So I've done a video on this on a Peugeot, and the one I used was set, I couldn't change it. But at least with this, if I'm testing a different system and has a different value, I can put a different resistor in there and I can actually test the system, which is, you know, just brilliant, because it saves you having to buy, you know, 5 or 6 of these with different values in and stuff. You just buy one kit and you can change the value you want. Absolutely lovely. Now these blue fellas, you can see we've got a little light at the top. These are really good for testing injectors and stuff. If you want to test the pulse of an injector, this will actually pulse, so you know it's open and you know it's firing, you know there's power getting to the injector. You have 2 of them, which is really handy. And again, what you can do is, you know, with all our connections, so for example, we can pull out our back probe here, clip this in, just put that back on top there so I don't lose it, because that's very sharp. Plug that into our injector, and we can see as you're starting or as you're trying to fire or as it's firing, you can see that kind of flashing, which again tells you your injector system is working. You know, really great. And like I said, everything plugs into everything, which is fantastic. The other really good thing is you can check polarity on the circuit. So if you hook these up to a circuit and you want to know which is the power side and the ground side, the LED light will tell you. If you get it wrong, it will turn red and it will turn green. So you can actually figure out what side of the circuit works, which is really handy as well. And again, this also does the same thing. You can plug that in and do the same thing as well. You just don't need both sides. You can just put that to your earth. The beauty with this is you already have your earth connected to the car and you just plug that in and it'll turn the color. So yeah, really, really handy kit. And again, all these is like I said before, you know, you plug one wire coming in, you have two out. So if you want to use an earth, you know, you can have two wires earth. They're just connections. They're handy. They actually call them three-way connections. So yeah. Really handy. Right, so enough talking about it. We'll get to start using the baby. Now, this is the auto tester. I'll link the other video in. I did this with the parasitic drawer, but we're just going to go into a few more details. So essentially you get the unit itself. Again, you get a nice hard case and you get all the connections. Crocodile clip connections as well, which is fantastic. These are for, well, I'll show you. These are for checking, well, for certain checks and stuff. You have the 30 amp and you have the 1 amp. So what we'll do, we'll actually get into some kind of real world tests with all these. I won't go through absolutely everything, but I'll certainly, you know, go through the functions of this and I'll show you what kind of the other kits will allow you to do on a modern vehicle. Sorted. So what this does is, it's 6, 24 and 12 volts turned on at the minute, but you just press the button, it turns on. Now, we're on the first button, which is continuity. Now, there's lots of things you can use continuity for. So when I attach these together, you'll hear it bleep. Not only that, a little light comes on the top of the unit. You can see that on camera. Yeah. Now, with the continuity tester, you do have to be careful. It can kind of get you stuck sometimes if you're trying to test a wire. For example, let's say you have a wire running across and you can see both ends, but you can't see the middle of it, and you want to see if that wire is okay. By putting these two connections on either end, if it bleeps, you might think, oh, well, that's okay. Not necessarily, because you could have a couple of strands of wire that connected, but you know, if you do other tests on it, you'll realize, you know, you have problems. But what a continuity test is really good for is just quick, easy, simple test. For example, if you want to test fuses, so let's just get you in here. I can quickly go through all these fuses, touching the two ends. If it doesn't beep or if it doesn't light up, you know a fuse is gone. And you can do that really, really quickly. Like that. Another thing it's really good for is, and the perfect example I can give you is Robinson's Auto's last video. He was doing a problem where someone rewired something and didn't wire it correctly. And he showed you exactly what a continuity test. I can't really replicate that on this car, but I'll put a link down to his video and you'll see exactly what I mean. So that's continuity test. Then we'll flick the switch down to A, which is amps and amp draw. Right, so what I'm going to do, we're going to do an amp draw, even though I've done another video on this, which I will link in the description, but we'll quickly go through it on this video. So I've got the 1 amp lead set in, which is the yellow one. And if you're unsure, you plug the fuse side into the red lead at the top. So then we go to amp draw, we press select. We're 0 to 900, or 0 to 999 millivolts. Now, the best thing about this is, this is testing, you know, if your battery is going flat overnight or something like that, this is testing the draw on the fuses. And again, when I link in the other video, you'll understand why this is quite important. This works on a traffic light system. If it goes red, you know you have a problem. If it stays the same or goes to green, you're okay. So again, we can just very, very quickly go on all these fuses and just see if we have any draw at all, which there's nothing. This car isn't got a draw, so we're not really expecting anything on here, to be honest. But I will make a draw. so you can see what it actually looks like, because at the minute we've got nothing. Now, as you can see, we've got a little drawer on there. The meter's gone to green, so we know that is absolutely fine. We don't have to worry about that. That's the best thing about this. You don't really need to understand the numbers. The machine will tell you. So that's green, that's okay. Nothing on that one. We have something on that one, but again, it's green. So we're not having to worry about that at all. Again, another green one. Oh, that's gone back down, so that's okay. So there we go. Very, very simple. You can test a fuse or the drawer between a fuse without having to take it out. And if you watch my parasitic drawer video, the third one, which I'll link down below, you'll see why that's very important on a modern vehicle. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to amps. Now what we need to do is select the fuse we're working on. So you've got mini, you've got maxi, then you've got the ordinary one. We're working, as you can see down here, we're working on the little mini fuses, so I press OK. Then we need to tell the machine what fuses. Now I know we've got a draw on fuse number 20. So I'm going to go down here to 20 amp. Select OK. And this will actually tell me what current we're actually drawing on this fuse. 3.25 amps. That's what it's actually drawing. So that's really, really handy. You can actually, the machine will tell you what you don't need to do. Oh, let's just turn that off, that's annoying. The machine will actually tell you what you're drawing. So that means you don't have to go to any conversion tables, try and work out what the millivolts is to amps or anything like that. The machine will tell you, and you know, it's just so much easier. So then we need to go down to the next one, which is volts. Now, again, we've got two settings. We've got volts DC, and you can see a picture of a starter motor. Now, just before we go on to our next section, if you are testing, like we've just done, but if you are testing your fan or anything like that, you want to put the blue one on, the 30 amp, because that's obviously drawing a lot more ampage than the other one. So depending on what you're testing, you have two different leads to test. The higher draws for fan, AC units and stuff like that, you need this blue connection. What we're going to do now is we're going to go to volts. Now I'm on volts. We've got volts DC and a picture of a starter motor. Now it's very important you now take off them connections, because we're doing a different test, and we just put our normal leads back in. So we're just gonna, if you want to test what voltage your battery is, you know, if you want to test if you've got a 5 volts or 12 volts or whatever in any particular circuit, turn it to volts, press go, and this is going to be really simple. Just put your leads on and it will tell you 12.4 volts. Now again, what's really good about this is the traffic light system. Again, this battery is a bit dodgy. 12.4 volts isn't charged by any stretch of the imagination. It's telling me, it might not be shown on camera, but it's kind of amber, so it's saying, look, you know, charge your battery. If it was green, that means it's perfect. If it's red, that means you have a problem. The battery is completely flat. So that tells us, it is really, really handy. You know, again, you don't have to guess. 12.6 volts is a fully charged battery, just to let you know. Right, so that's voltage, very straightforward. But if we go back and we go to starter, the starter button on the voltage, press OK. Now, this is what I really like. So what we need to do now is, we need to get different connections on. So what we're going to do is we need to get different connections on. So we're going to take off these, and you'll see why in a second. I'm going to put my Crocodile Clips on, which come with the kit. This is why I was saying before, Crocodile Clips are really handy. I'm going to put it on my battery. And what we are now going to do is, we're going to test, well, the machine is going to test the battery for us, so the voltage drop in the battery at startup. And again, the machine is going to tell us if we need to replace our battery or not, because of the traffic light system. Now I think that's actually set, so I'm going to have to go back out. Oh, go back out. Press it. It's saying our battery is 12.4 volts. So that's it before we start it. We're going to start it, and it's going to then tell us what the condition of our battery is like. Turn it off, and our battery only went down to 11 volts. And as you can see, it's green. But as you can see, it's green, so it's saying, you know, okay. If it was red, it drops below a certain voltage, the machine says, no, battery is gone. So very, very simply, very, very quickly, you can test the condition of the battery, all in the same machine. So next one we want to go to is ohms. And as we can see, it's just said my batteries are baggered. So I'll have to change my batteries first. And it takes 3 AA's. So once I've changed the batteries, we continue with the test. Right, so replace the batteries. Got my test kit because now we're going to be doing ohms. So, oh, turn it on, hold it, might help. So you can see we're on the ohm settings now. Now what I've got here is a crankshaft sensor, and every sensor is more or less pretty much the same way of testing. You need to know the specs for your vehicle and the specs for different sensors, so they are different. And then once you know the spec, you can actually test the sensor rather than guessing, oh, is it the sensor or isn't it? Because, for example, just because this, you know, you could have a fault crankshaft sensor signal or something, doesn't necessarily mean it's a crankshaft sensor. It could be the wire going to it. So if you want to isolate that and find out exactly what's going on, turn your meter to ohms, put your connections in, and again, as you can see, this is where the good quality connections come in because they're not thick, they both fit, they're a good connection, not going to fall off. We're going to get a proper test reading. Take off our Crocodile Clips because we don't need them for this test. Where is it? Down here, and of course it's stuck. Our meter's on 0, so that's good. So we know we're going to get a true reading. You can zero the meter out if you're unsure and see what your resistance is. As we can see, 0.00. That's how you know you've got good quality stuff. The cheaper meters out there, when you put them together, they could read, or they could read anything. And the problem is that could mess up your reading. So you have to just, you know, take that number away from your reading. It just gets messy. So all I'm going to do is plug these in here. Well, actually, no, I can't do that because I've got the wrong connections on. So what I do, I get out my connections from my kit. We plug them in here. This then gives us a banana jack connection into here. They plug in nice and easy, nice and good, and bingo, we have our resistance reading. Now, like I said, you do now need to know your specs of your sensor or whatever you happen to be testing. But as you can see, we have good, proper connections. They're not falling off, they're not loose. We have proper readings. And again, that's where this kit comes in, because depending on what you are actually testing, we have all the different connections here to do it. They all plug into this. You're not having to, you know, worry, oh, is my connections good, is my connections bad? They all clip in nice and lovely. And yeah, believe me, things like this just save you so much time and hassle, which is good. So having good stuff, good leads is important. Put them together, and as we can see, just in case, oh, 0.00, fantastic. Oh, 0.00, sorted. So there we go, and you can do that with, well, every sensor really. And with this test, if this is in spec, within spec of the readings, you now know that this sensor is okay. And then you can maybe look at your wiring, you can look at your, well, whatever happens to be controlling it, anything like that. It takes a lot of the guesswork out. With proper connections, everything, it makes life so much easier. Right, so let's get now, I'll start showing you some of these and how to connect these up. So, a great piece of kit is an amp or a fuse buddy. We're working on the maxi fuses, so I put the maxi fuse connection in. Well, I say I do. There we go. And let's say, right, so I'm going to pull this 20 amp fuse out, and I've got a 20 amp fuse in here. Always make sure you replace it with the same fuse, because otherwise, if you put a bigger fuse in, you're going to have problems. Now what you can do, if you can see us, you can see it, yeah, is you can put an amp clamp round there, and you can see what amp it's drawing. But like I said, this machine does it for you. You can go back into the amp setting, go back into the, not the amp drawer, the amp, and you can see that. So if you just want to buy the kit, because you already have a multimeter, well then you're going to need an amp clamp. But the old machine does it for you. But they are great. And like I said, it has all the different connections to you. So that's what you use that for, which is obviously very, very handy. Kind of the same thing with this. Again, you replace your fuse, you put this in, you can then disconnect this. Oh, what am I doing? You can then put that in there, put this onto your battery negative, and you can see what voltage is going through there, again with the fuse intact. Very, very handy. And obviously you have, like I showed you, absolutely everything else in there. So you can see now why you do kind of need, you know, modern stuff on modern vehicles, because otherwise you're guessing. There's no point guessing, is it this, is it that, you know, is it this sensor, is it that sensor? There's just no point guessing. I will see if I can get a petrol car in, and I'll just show you how these fellas work. And then we'll go to the last settings, which is the cycles, or hertz, whatever you want to call it. And then that's really it. And that's kind of going through everything. And you'll then realize just what you need for these modern vehicles. It's not just, you can't just use fag packets anymore and set things. You need a bit more equipment than that these days. Now, these are known as a few things, but like I said, you can see the little LED light on top there. This, what we're going to use, I'm going to show you for a couple of things. One is an injector pulse. This should flash when you're on an injector to make sure there's power and everything going to it. But another thing it's good for is, let's say you have two wires and you know there's a power and an earth, but you don't know which one's which. Very, very quickly, you can put these to it. So I'm just going to show you on the battery. So I'm just going to put this on the battery. I'm going to do it the wrong way around first. This should turn green, or red, sorry. As you can see, that's red, so it's telling me the polarities are wrong. So I switch it around, put the red lead on the plus, and there we go. So I now know, without even looking, that this is the plus and this is the minus. Now, obviously on a battery, it's easy. But if you're on a circuit and you're unsure, you know there's a power and you know there's an earth, well, this can tell you very, very quickly, instantly, what they are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on a petrol injector just because it's easier. I think I've got one outside and we should see this in action. Right, okay, so let's imagine you have a misfire on this engine, and let's say it says on the computer misfire cylinder 2, for example. Right, this is cylinder 2. Very, very quickly, we can see if the injector is firing and the injector circuit is okay. Now, this will only tell you if you've got power coming to the injector. This won't tell you, the state of your injector or anything. But, so I'm just going to back probe. Well, actually, I'll back probe number 1 just because it's a bit easier for me. So like I said, this is just the top of the injector. I'm just putting this down. Doesn't matter which way you put it. So let's say we have a misfire in cylinder 1. And we don't know obviously what it is. We just want to do some quick tests just to kind of knock things off the list. Just plug that in there. If we see this light flashing, then we know we've got power coming to injector. Now, if we don't see it flashing, at least we know we've got some sort of wiring issue coming into the injector. Again, it's just a quick, simple test. So I'm just going to start this car and let's see what happens. There we go. We can see it flashing. Now, obviously this car doesn't have a misfire, but you can see, hopefully you can see that. Oh, dodgy connection there. Hopefully you can actually see that flashing. Yeah, you should be able to. So there we go. Very quick, easy test, lovely jubbly. And then you can obviously take your diagnosis further, but at least, very, very quickly, bang, you can say, okay, right, our wiring to our injector is okay. Right, what's the next thing it can be? These are quick, simple tests. As you can see, it does work on a diesel as well. The only reason I didn't show it on a diesel is because the diesel is a lot louder. That's why I didn't show it. But it does work. Now, what we're going to do is kind of the last test is our duty cycle. I think we'll pick the EGR valve again just because it's simple, but there's, you can do it with a lot. I'm just kind of going through simple things, basic things, and things I can get to a lot easier. That's why I showed the other sensor out the car. But again, you know your ohms meter, you can use all for these sensors. It's amazing what you can do, but it's one of them things that you just kind of need to practice, you know, especially if you're starting off. Work on a car that is good. No point working on a bad car. Work on a car that is good. I don't like the way that is. Leave it there, maybe. Get some cable ties on that. And, you know, then you know your readings are correct and you can go from there. But it's just practice. You know, for your average DIYer, yes, maybe these things aren't going to be for you. But it's one of them things where if you're spending money on good stuff, you'll have it forever. And that's the key, you know, you will have it forever. You know it's going to be good. It's kind of as simple as that. Right, so our last test, we'll do it on the EGR valve of this baby. Now I've decided to do it on the petrol car because it's not as loud, it's just easier to hear me. Just be aware when you do have all your leads connected, make sure they're not hanging down near your fan belt or your actual radiator fan or anything, because if that kicks on or something, they're going to get ripped in and you're going to destroy everything. So kind of keep them out of the way as much as possible. So we're going to turn it back on. We're going to turn it to hertz, duty cycles, which is essentially you're monitoring something that's on and off. So that's essentially what it is. We've got two options. We can monitor it here with volts and over a second, or we can just do our normal duty cycles. So what I'm going to do is I'll just leave it on 1 second for the minute. We're going to turn this on. So we're on our injector. And we're going to monitor that. Now this is where it is important to know your specs and stuff. But again, if you are, for example, thinking there is maybe a problem with this injector or something, you can test your other three. If they're all more or less the same and one of them is completely off, well then you know it really is as simple as that. But at least it gives you an idea of what this machine can do. Right, keep getting interrupted, so let's do this. So we're on the injector. As you can see, the voltage is going up and down. 26 volts, 15 volts. Again, you need to know your specs, and we're at 9 hertz. If I rev that, that should change. Hopefully you can see that there. So this is handy, especially for an EGR valve. If you're doing an EGR valve and you rev it and it doesn't change, you know the EGR valve is stuck or something like that. What you can do on an EGR valve is you can actually rev it and tap it at the same time, or even just tap it, and if your voltage change or if your hertz change, you know it's kind of maybe sticking. So there's loads of things you can do with this. Then we'll just go into actually duty cycles here, and we're at 98%. So again, if I rev that, that will change depending on what I rev it to. Power, 1.4 power. So there we go. So again, you need to know what you're testing and your specs, but this little gadget with the wiring kit, you can pretty much do everything in a car. It's awesome. Sorted. Right, I'm just putting everything back. So, because it's always good to look after everything. But the reason why I'm kind of showing this is because we're going to get on people's OCD here. I'm not going to leave it like this, I'm just going to put it on. So I'm going to put the red one on the black one, like that. And then I'm going to put the black one on the red one. Now, I know that's going to get a few people kind of riled up, so there you go. And then put everything away nice and neat. So there we go, people. 2 pieces of modern kit you need to work on a modern car. It's kind of as simple as that. Yes, this is not going to be for everybody, but if you do buy these, you know, they will last you. Provided you look after them, they will last you. Quality does last. You know, you do get what you pay for. It's kind of as simple as that. I will leave all the links in the description where you can get these from. I'll also leave a link in the description to their Facebook page, and if you want to contact them and ask them where your local dealer is, so you can get this stuff, you know, because they supply to a lot of dealers. And if you ask them where to actually get the stuff from, they will tell you. So I'll leave a link down to their Facebook page. And if you would like their Facebook page for me, that would be great. So everyone go over and like the page, because they have new videos and new products they're bringing out and stuff like that. And if there is anything you would like to see that they've got and you might like a video on it, let me know and I'll see what I can do. Can't promise anything, but I'll see what I can do. And yeah, so that's really it. I mean, you know, you will start seeing these in a lot more of my videos. I'm going to start doing a lot more diagnostic videos that I don't really film, but I'm going to start filming a lot more of them now. So you'll see these being used, you'll see these connections, you'll see this machine being used quite a lot on my channel now. And yeah, there's, you know, it's very difficult for me to go into every single thing because it just takes too long, but you will start seeing them on a lot of my videos. So that's really it. So yeah, look, hope it helps. Please like, share and subscribe. You know, all the links down below to my Facebook, to their Facebook, to absolutely everything. Go and like all that. Don't forget, links up here, links down below. But most importantly, don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one. Sorted.